All right, everyone. Welcome back to today's episode of Words of the Wise. Today, I have Chief Pate from University of Indianapolis, PD in Indiana. 20 years total experience in law enforcement. He holds a bachelor's degree in emergency management, a master's degree in strategic leadership, and is currently working on his doctorate in strategic leadership. Welcome to the show, Chief Pate. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Every time I go through bios, I always feel like an underachiever because I always see these like huge milestones of, bachelor's, master's, and now doctorate. Can you give us a little bit of background? What got you started in law enforcement? And, obviously, education and development have been a big part of your career. So give us a little bit of insight.
Sure. My father was a police officer and in the military as well. So that structured environment was something I was just familiar with. And I actually went out into the world as a welder to begin with. And working in different job shops and job sites and things like that, I did not get what I was used to at home. And once I turned 21, applied for law enforcement, got into starting working at jail and found that structure that was normal for me.
Mm.
And I just kind of liked that area, seemed to fit in well. It was what I was used to. I always wanted to be a police officer. I think I'm one of the few people that, as a kid, I kind of knew I wasn't going to be a professional athlete. I was a wrestler, and their only professional wrestling was WWE, so I wasn't going to be some kind of and I wasn't an Olympian by any means, but I wanted to be a police officer for sure. So getting into it at 21 years old, I was super motivated. Um, Went to every school I could, went to every training I could. And through that, I think that's where the bug to kind of instruct and teach came from, just because I had so many great instructors and so many great teachers. And I looked at it way differently than I think some officers did.
Mm.
I wasn't stacking certificates. I was building kind of a toolbox that I could let other people borrow tools out of versus like building a toolbox that was just for me. Um, and I got the bug to instruct and come to find out after a lot of mistakes in teaching, I kind of honed in this ability to talk to people and be able to share knowledge and especially through like experiential learning, being able to do scenario based trainings and stuff like that. And that led to just diving deeper into like education. So I got a bachelor's degree first. It was later in life. I was 28 when I went back to college at the University of Indianapolis. Got the degree, used it to help further teaching in law enforcement. Got a master's degree, used that to become a master instructor in law enforcement, and found out that just this gap of knowledge I always wanted for some reason going to school and learning more, like I can't get enough of it. I by no means have know a lot or learned a lot, but I've been able to experience a lot. And having that, being able to teach back and help people and see them grow, that's one of the biggest accomplishments I think outside of just the law enforcement field is I can watch, especially at our agency, I can watch people come in at one level and grow through their career fields and kind of help guide and say, hey, I've been here, done that, don't do that because that's bad. Or even people that I trained maybe 10 years ago that I talk to today and see the difference from when I met them into now. I think I'm really motivated by their journeys and their paths more so than I am by, just constantly getting a certificate or an education.
Mm. One of the things you said earlier that I thought was so cool is that you said you had a toolbox that was worth sharing and not a toolbox that was just for yourself. And we were connecting a little bit about this offline about for me, I see so much value in having those conversations and sharing, successes and failures with other people so that they can learn from you. And, I want to learn from other people too. And, how can we have a mindset of, bringing people along with us, uplifting people. And I think that we've all experienced both, right? We've all met people who are that way and they're like, hey, like I want to share all my knowledge and experiences with everyone because I want you to take what you want, leave what you don't, but at least you have, a mentor or someone who, you can model yourself after or you can learn from. And then we've also met people who hold everything tight to their chest and they're like, I'm not going to give away any of my quote unquote secrets or knowledge because I want to keep it for myself because I want, to succeed in my own career rather than helping other people succeed. And I've always loved to be the first one and to associate with that first one. I want people who are collaborative. I want people who want other people to succeed, and I think the more we can share our knowledge and experiences, the better everyone's going to be, because then we don't feel alone in our own personal journeys, whatever that looks like. Because, obviously we're all going to have different experiences. We're all going to, view things in different ways. But when we hear someone who's been through something similar, it's really comforting to hear that and to be able to understand that you're not alone. So I love that you take that mentorship perspective and that you want to help people along.
Yeah, that ego is a weird journey to go through, wanting to gather everything for yourself and kind of self-preservation and protect. And we see that a lot when we have new instructors. Um, but I think once you break out and realize that it is a toolbox for everyone to learn from, and then you learn what true mentorship is, to me, I feel like some people have this vision of mentorship as finding someone who has walked the perfect path and then trying to figure out how they got there, or someone who's already in a great position and trying to see what they're currently doing today, versus like, I looked for people that struggled. Like, I want to know the person that came up against an impassable wall, found a way around it, hit a moat on the other side, swam through that, found a way over a hill. Like, I want the person who had to go through a little bit of grit, because for me, a mentor, I need them to be there when I'm going through that, because I certainly have myself. And learning later on that when I'm trying to mentor someone, I want to show them the good and the bad. I want to be able to say, hey, yeah, here's the highlights and here's how things could go for you. And here's what 5 years looks like. But I also want to say 6 months from now, it might get tough. It might get really, really hard. And finding your motivation internally is going to be way more valuable than any kind of extrinsic motivator we could put on you. Being that type of mentor that actually focuses on the development through the struggle, and being there as someone that, like, I have a mad minute policy. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or not, but anyone can walk in my office and for a minute or 3 or 5, they can say whatever they want. They can be as mad as they want, as frustrated as they want. They can say anything. The only rule is at that 5 minute point, we have to agree to work on solving the problem together.
Oh,
Say, get it out, get the emotions out. I get it. That's cool. But I think as part of mentoring is doing that as well, is being able to be the person that sometimes receives that hard feedback and that tough feedback and the raw emotion from somebody, and then being able to say, okay, now that you've got that out, I'm still here, I'm still listening to you, and now I want to walk together to get to a solution. I think that's mentorship for me, at least. At least what helped me was that being able to call somebody and go, it's not working. It's upside down, backwards, and written in Portuguese, and I don't know what to do.
mhm.
And having someone be like, yeah, no, that's normal. Here's,
Yeah.
I've done that myself, and here's how I got through it.
Yeah. Wow. There's so many things you said that I got so excited about. And I want to dive into a few of them, but I've never heard the Mad Minute. I think that is
Mm-hmm.
genius. That is so cool. But the best part of that is, okay, once we get it off our chest, now we're in solution based conversation mode. And I think that we forget that, like we all know, and again, we all know the people who just complain to complain. And that's not what we're doing here, right? It's like, yes, it's okay to be frustrated. Yes, it's okay for this to not make sense. Yes, it's okay for it to be hard. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be frustrated, all the things. Let's get that out. But at the end of the day, can we have a solution based conversation that's going to move us forward? And we have to have that piece. Otherwise, we're just stuck in this negative feedback loop forever. And so I love that you say, like, get it out. I'm here. I'm an open ear. I'm going to listen to everything. And then at the end of that timer, let's move forward. Let's figure it out together. That's so cool. And
Those feelings are real.
for
That
sure.
emotion that they're giving you is real. And to think someone's going to be able to come in and work positively together while still holding in that, you know, disagreement or anger or frustration, or I don't feel heard and I need to say this out loud. It's crazy to think that you're going to be able to get that person to not only follow but execute, and to do it on their own will and want, right?
Yeah.
Being able to let them come in and say, hey, I think this plan is crazy. Like, all right, give me your points, and then we're going to talk about how we got there, and then we're going to agree together. If we need to change something, let's change it, but we're going to move in a direction that's positive for the agency or the community, not in a direction where we're leaving here and building, you know, we're creating problems within an agency or within the team or something like that. Like, let's just have it out. Let's have the conversation. I'm not going to yell at you. You're not going to get in trouble, but you're able to tell me whatever you want.
Hmm. Yeah, no judgment.
No judgment.
Now it's
And
like, let's go. Like we're on a safe space right now. Let's get it out. There's no judgment. Say what you want, and then we're gonna move forward. I love that. The other thing I was gonna say is I would argue, and I think there's a difference. So I would argue the people who are at the peak or pinnacle, you said like you think everyone thinks that someone just like walked a perfect path and those are the people that they want to follow, right? But I would argue that everyone who is standing at the top of the mountain, like I'll put that in quotes, so everyone who's like kind of at that pinnacle, they've all had hardships. There is no one that I know of that hasn't struggled with something at some point. I think the difference is that some people are comfortable sharing it and some people aren't. And I I resonate, like I should say this, maybe I want to say this in like the nicest way. I don't resonate with people who give the perception of perfection. To me, like I can't relate to that at all because every day there's different struggles, and every week and every month. And I've failed a lot and I've struggled a lot and I've, had to pick myself up and dust myself off. And so for someone to be like, yep, like it was easy. I just scaled this mountain like no sweat and here I am, like to me that's not relatable. I would argue with them that I don't think that that's true. They probably just don't want to give the perception that they struggled. It is the people who are humble and the people who can sit with you in the mud and be like, I've been here,
yeah,
like maybe not exactly the same, but I get it. And here's how I struggled and here's how I got through. There's a guy, and I've talked about him a couple times. I don't know if you've heard of him. His name is Alex Hermosi. Have you heard of him before? So he's like a big business guy. So he likes entrepreneurial. His wife is Layla Hermosi, and he started a business called Gym Launch. And before that, he was a gym owner. So he owned a bunch of like CrossFit gyms.
yeah.
And
Here, I
yeah,
think I know the guy. He wears like a bridge thing on
yeah,
his nose. Okay, I
yeah.
know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He is super successful. Like, I think he sold his company for like $50 million. And now like they own an acquisition company that has like billions of dollars like under management. So very, very successful guy. But he talks about how he didn't know how he was going to make payroll, how like, he had conversations with his wife where he's like, you should just leave me. Like I'm a loser. And she's like, I'll sleep with you under a bridge if that's what we have to do. Like he talks about these really, really hard times and how he got through it. And yes, now he's successful, but he never forgot where he came from. And he uses that story to help other people who are also, aspiring to build their own businesses or to do their own thing. And I think that like there's so much power in that. And I would listen to him all day long, then listen to the guy who is in the same like financial bracket as him being like, I didn't struggle at all. Like it was all easy. So I think it's a message to everybody, because I believe that the more we share, the more we can connect and the more we can uplift others. But I also think conversations can save lives. And I think the more that we can share those parts with ourselves, the better. But it takes a little bit of vulnerability and authenticity to do it. And that can be scary.
yeah. I like the way you framed it. I hadn't registered it that way, truth be told, as the people that want to share and the people that don't want to share. But as you're saying it and I'm listening, I'm rolling through the Rolodex of people in my brain that I've been underneath or I are leaders that I respect or some that I don't. That is a factor. There are some that will say, here's my scars. Here's the way it went. And then there's some that are just like, no, I worked hard. I did everything right. And I followed this path and I got where I am. And I'm kind of with you. Like either I'm doing it wrong or or you're just that good at what you do. But I would have to agree. I think some want to and some just don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we all have to decide like where we want to be, like on, which side of that. And um, I definitely, when I was younger, I didn't want people to know that I struggled. I wanted to, um, give this perception that I was good and everything was fine and everything was great and like work ethic and all the things. And I think when you work in a really highly competitive workforce or work environment, a lot of times you think that by sharing those things, it makes you vulnerable or weak, or it opens you up to other people surpassing you. And I had that when I was really young. I was like, well, if I open myself up and I give away all my secrets, I put these in quotes because I don't think that they're secrets. I think that we should share everything and beat them anyway. That's kind of always been my motto, is like give everything away and then still be the best at what you do. Like one doesn't have to, ruin the other. But when I was younger, I really did think that. I was like, well, if I give away all my secrets, that means someone else can surpass me. And I actually have found the opposite to be true. I think the more you open yourself up and the more you share, the more of an expert you become, the more respected you are. And then I think a little bit of that healthy competitiveness is good. Like if you see people who are like taken off, and you realize like, oh, maybe I've been a little complacent. Like maybe I'm not pushing as hard as like these young people who are hungry. It kind of lights a fire a little bit for you to also strive to be the best version of yourself. And I think we need all of it. But as I've gotten older, I think I've had different perspectives than when I was younger. So I think we just have to decide at different times in our lives, like who we want to be.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I know obviously you're a smart guy, you have degrees in leadership, you're working on your doctorate in leadership. Can you talk a little bit about your leadership philosophy and how do you help your team to also become effective leaders? Like what kind of training or conversations do you have surrounding leadership and the success of the organization moving forward?
Sure. Well, first point, all I've learned is that I don't know anything. That's kind of why you keep going, I think, is you rack up some years in the books and just to realize that you really don't know what you're doing at all. But I was very fortunate to have a mentor that I trusted very much. He was in the military. He was a ranger, and he had this leadership philosophy for his teams. And what I loved about it was it's a document that he had written and said, I'm going to give this to you. It lays out my expectations of you, but it also lays out what you can expect of me. And his was very detailed. It was very kind of military based. So it had a lot of points. We're going to do X, Y, Z, yada, yada, yada. I loved that it was a document. So I made one and basically I set out if I wanted the team to operate as positively functional as possible, what would I need from them? And then I kind of took that hat off and said, if I wanted a leader that I could hold accountable, what would I want to know from them? Like, what would I want the guarantees to be so that I would follow this person, even if I didn't necessarily agree with the path we were going, but I would follow them. I use that to create there's an individual, and I've got it pulled up over here. There's an individual section of this that's things like valued behaviors. It tells them how I judge you, which is kind of like character, competency, work ethic, right? But then it has organization, like we will provide you feedback in a timely manner. We will be transparent with it. You're not going to come to me, or I'm not going to come to you and say, 3 months ago, you started doing this. And for the last 3 months, it's been XYZ. I'm not going to do that to you. I don't believe in that at all. I also don't believe in divisiveness. So I'm very quick to kind of put a stop to things that are dividing the team or dividing the organization. And I outline that in there as well. I also value very much integrity. And I tell them in this document, I can do a lot, meaning that we can get a lot of things done to help if you tell me the truth. It's the moment that you omit something or lie about it that I kind of lose the ability to help at all. But I can almost handle any situation if you tell me the truth. If I find about it later, then it's a little bit more difficult for me. And then the other kind of big highlight in it is continuous process improvement. I know and freely admit that tomorrow someone's going to come out with something better,
Mhm.
or next year they're going to learn that something we're doing today is not good, or it's bad for wellness, or it's not great for mental health. It's not developing the team. It's not moving people forward. So I commit to we will do CPI, continuous process improvement. We will look at things. You can bring me things every week if you want to, and we'll review them as timely as we can to try to make changes. What I don't want to become is this is the way it's always been, this is the way we do it type thing. I want to be, we've explored XYZ, and as a group, we agree that this is the path that we're going to go forward with. And I know there are chiefs out there that look at me and go, the officers are in charge of the agency. No, they're not, but they are informed and they inform how we operate. So they're well involved in how we build the agency, but they're also informing the way that we build it for the future.
Mm.
Because the reality is, at some point in time, I'm going to hand this agency off to them, right? And what you don't want to have when you think about contingency planning or succession planning, you don't want to have this person that held, we're going to do this, and this, and no one else wanted to do it. And the next one comes in and it's down here. That gap, that institutional knowledge gap and that transfer gap that happens when the team isn't bought in on what the policies, procedures, practices, and things like that are, is insurmountable. It takes way too long, it's years to get somebody to come in and overturn an agency from the outside when no one agreed on the current practices and policies that are in place. So I don't call it a flat organization. I call it an informed and informing organization. So they're informed and they inform us as the team, and we're a team. I'm responsible when something goes bad. They're going to come down to me and say, this is your agency. But the reality is, I kind of work for them to keep them on the road, to keep them safe, to keep their policies current, to keep their practices current. Um, just the other day, someone come in and had mentioned a topic that came up in training, and they're like, I think that might be outdated.
Mm.
Great. Let's look at that because if it's outdated, let's pull it off the shelf. And if need be, I'll call everybody else who's doing this and say, hey, it might be outdated. So we're going to figure out whether or not it is or isn't. And if it is, we're going to move from it, right? This happened to us with, I'll give you an example, if you allow, use of force. Use of force was a continuum based policy. Someone had to do X to meet this amount of force, and it worked its way up. About 8 years ago, we came to the table and said, one, we don't think it's constitutional, and two, it's not tactically sound to do so. So we went back to constitutional use of force, where you just meet the Graham v. Connor and the different case laws, right? What we learned from doing that was it also allowed the officer less decision downloading time to react to stuff. So they had one less thing that they had to process while
Mm.
they were thinking about that allowed them to react and perform actually at a higher level because they could make decisions based upon their knowledge that they had, not a continuum that they were required to reference type thing. But without having a baseline continuous process improvement in there that everyone is allowed to contribute to, some of that stuff gets lost. But all of that to say it's ingrained in the document that they receive day one from me. They'll come to my office day one. Hey, I just want to give you this. I've already signed it. I'd like you to review it and take it home. It's my promise to you that myself and the command staff here and the leadership and the FTOs and all your mentors are going to abide by the document. Look it over. If you think something in it needs changed or updated, that's the other thing. It's because of the people we have here, we've actually it's had changes made to it, better to the benefit of the organization. Come back to us with those changes. We'll review and we'll sign this thing at the end. We try not to change it a lot because then everyone has to sign it again, but it has happened before. So, I mean, that's kind of day one walking in to work here is, here's our leadership philosophy. It has the valued behaviors on it. We're going to expect professionalism, courtesy, accountability, diversity, and we're going to roll with that. A team is not made up of 10 people that think alike. It's 10 individuals that have different experiences and different backgrounds and different expertise and different viewpoints that come together and work collectively to accomplish a goal and a mission.
Um, Thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad that you, because I wrote this down before you said it. I'm so glad that you said, I don't want to be a that's the way it's always been done organization. And that is one of my biggest pet peeves with anyone I talk to when they're just like, we do it this way just because that's the way that it's done. And my question is always like, yeah, but what if it could be better? Like, is anything ever perfect? I
Right.
personally don't think that perfection exists. I think that we can always strive to be better. And I love that you're encouraging that thought process of like, hey, like, let's challenge things. Let's ask ourselves with everything that we're doing, is it the best way forward? Is it the most productive? Is it the most effective? And if the answer is yes, great, we'll keep doing that. But if the answer is no, and there's a different way or a better way or a more effective way to do things, why wouldn't we want to do that? And it goes back to what we said before. Like, I'm a huge solution based conversation person. It's like, how can we continue to strive to be better individually and collectively? And having that mindset to me, and I used to say this, and I think people think it's really like kind of morbid, and I don't mean for it to be that way, but I used to always say, if you're not growing, you're dying. And the idea is like, if you're not continuing to try to, ask those questions and trying to improve and trying to develop, then what's the opposite of that? It's stagnation, right? And nothing grows in stagnant water, right? It's like we have to have the movement. We have to like challenge ourselves. And I think that sometimes things do become overwhelming, or maybe people think it's too hard. And so you just don't try. But I love that you're encouraging that thought process of like, hey, bring it to me. If you think something could be better, like let's constantly have it as a part of the conversation.
Yeah. And you have to, it's a tough road to hoe and it's hard to even do today because you do get a lot of feedback on some stuff that in some cases you felt like you were pretty knowledgeable on and pretty passionate about, and someone will come in with an edit and a change. And you have to really set aside this like ownership slash ego that exists. And if you can do that, I guess on the outside of this, having done it so many times, you'll find that the end result's better.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also like not wrong, it's just different,
Yeah.
and it is hard. I have a team too, and I always encourage them. I was like, if something's not working, like bring it to me, like let's figure out how to do better. What is it? And like I try to have that same open dialogue. And I think the biggest flex is to be able to set aside an ego.
Yeah.
Like to be able to like have that like humble, like grounding conversation of like, yeah, you're right. Or like maybe I messed up. Like maybe that one's on me, to be able to take accountability. You go back to like teamwork, and you kind of like related a little bit kind of to sports of like, hey, like it's all these different people with different ideas, and we're working collectively for the betterment of everybody. If that's your mindset, then you have to be that way. You can't be a my way or no way mentality, because that's not everyone working collectively together. You're a part of that equation. When you're the leader of the team or the organization, like you have to also be working hand in hand with everyone too. And so it is hard to do that. But I think if you connect back to the mission and the why, and you want to also like, you want to continue to encourage people to do that. And the moment you shut someone down, they don't want to do that anymore. They're not going to continue to come to you with ideas if every time they come to you, it's like a closed door.
Couldn't agree more. That's that push versus pull meeting, right? If you walk in and say, this is the way it needs to be done, how do we do it? Like, you're not going to get any feedback
Yep.
at all. You've already made up your mind.
Yep. How do you think that, career development, because everything we're talking about, I think that's a part of it, right? You said like succession planning and building people up and making sure that they're prepared for the future, and they're a part of the team and they have influence into the decisions and, the trajectory of the agency. How do you think that career development impacts wellness and overall retention and job satisfaction? Do you think that it's a component of wellness?
I Yes, yes, unequivocally yes. But I'll also say you got to be really careful with it. And here's what I mean. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
If you're motivated by physical fitness and working out and watching people get better in that area of their life and develop more wellness, and I send you to school for accounting, it's career development. You're going to school for accounting, but what am I doing to you by doing that?
Mm.
Right? If I send you off, we'll take the officers. For me, career development isn't cut and paste, it's individual. It's individual performance improvement plans, and they're not PIPs. I hate the word PIP, but that's actually what it is, though, right? It's a developmental plan.
Mhm.
So when I look at one of my sergeants and I go, what are you motivated by? Well, I used to race go karts as a kid. Cool. You like cars? Yeah. Okay. You probably make a good Evo instructor then, right? If I send them to ground fighting school and they have no desire to be in confrontation like that or to be a ground fighting instructor, while the development is occurring, I'm actually probably hurting their motivation to stay, and I'm hurting my retention efforts, and in some ways I'm hurting their wellness too, right? Because this conversation obviously will include wellness to it, but they're going to take it home and they're going to say, I thought we were on the same page that I like XYZ and I've mentioned how much I like it. And they shoved me into this class that I have no desire to be in. By the way, happened to me. Sent to
Mhm.
schools that I really didn't have a desire to be there, other than that I was an instructor. I was decent at teaching people, and now I'm in a topic that I really don't have a grasp on, and a room full of people who are intrinsically motivated by being there. And I'm the one guy in the room, and the instructor says, who was voluntold to be here? I was. I'll make it through and I'll be a good student, but I don't know how much more you're going to get out of me. So you can utilize that positively by having someone that says, I want to be an FTO, I want to be a sergeant, I want to work my way up through leadership. Great. Let's get you started with a cadet program. Let's get you started with teaching small things that are easy. Can you go over the handbook? Can you teach some classes to the community? Can you do this, this, and this? And let's get you on a path to developing. And then there's the other side of taking someone who wants to do something and not letting them do it at all. Right. So it can be good and bad. It depends on, again, who's the leader or the team making the decisions on what that development looks like. And is that person that's making that decision, are they in tune with who they're making the decision about? At the end of the day, we're talking about people. We're working with people, and there's no two people that are the same. And that'll get to my leadership styles, is that I you can't lead two people the exact same way because they're just not the same.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I don't think that anything's a one size fits all, but I wrote that down. I was like, know your people, like, and as a leader, and of course, like as organizations get bigger, it can become harder to have those connection points with people. But I would argue that it's worth it to have those moments to sit down because at the end of the day, it's like that's what this is all about. When we talk about wellness, when we talk about success, like it's about the people. I've said this before, you look at sports and it's like the most valuable assets are the players, right? You want to protect the players at all costs. And it's the same within an organization. The most valuable asset are your people. How do you protect your people? How do you keep them safe? How do you keep them well? And how do you support their success moving forward? And the more you know them, the more you can cater to that. So I appreciate you saying that. But you said something earlier I want to circle back to. So you said, something about wellness. And I know you said that you have a go home philosophy. So can you talk a little bit about how you guys are prioritizing wellness and what that go home philosophy is specifically?
Yeah, this comes from making my own massive mistake of being way too involved in being a police officer 24/7, right? Like I let it define me. And this is what I wanted to be, and that's all I cared about, and that's all I did. I'd go to the gym, go to the range, work as much overtime as I could, thought that I was just helping the family and paying the bills and doing this, and not realizing that I'm taking what could be a 30, 40 year career and turning it into 5 years of burnout, right?
Mhm.
So going through those struggles and making the mistakes and missing the mark on deliverables and not being the officer that I could be, um, led to kind of a reset, and then realizing like, okay, what would I do differently, right? How would I make sure that Brandon isn't just Officer Pate or Deputy Pate, or what are my hobbies and interests that are not law enforcement related? How would I go about doing those? And then realizing that the truth or the path or the secret to longevity in this career is going home.
Mm,
Go home. It's not, and the academies, they teach you go home as in like be situationally aware and survive the day. I say go home to survive the career,
mm,
right? Turn it off. Go home. Go find something that's a hobby. Go find something you like to do. Go on the vacation. If you're giving vacation time back, we need to have a conversation in my office. If we're so motivated to be here that we're taking every ounce of overtime that we can and every extra detail and every this, that, and the other, we need to have a conversation about that. I'll talk about the elephant in the room. Sometimes it's fiscal, where it's, hey, are we in a bad spot that we need to, what kind of help can we get for you? Because having you extend the career to 10, 15, 20 is more of a value add than having you done at 5
yeah.
or 4. And how many times do we see that? Like when I got into this career field, 2006, um, people stayed for 30, 40 years on one agency, right? I hire people now and I've got a 3 year that's 100% for me. If I can get 5 out of them, that's great. And at 7, I'm like, are you guys okay? Like, because it's just not the norm anymore. And even the larger agencies that are around us, in the cities and municipalities and things like that, it's 3 or 4 years. In 3 or 4 years, if a person hasn't received what they believe is value add to them, they leave or they're burnt out. They've just done so much of it so fast that they're burnt out by it. So go home,
Mm,
go hunt, go shop. And I'm going down the list of my officers right here. I know what they want to do.
mhm.
Go work on the farm, go spend time in church with the family, go on that vacation to St. Charles. And as I'm saying this and they watch this video, they're all going to be like, he's talking about me. He's talking about me. He's talking about me. Because you got to go home. You got to go home. You have to leave this behind at some point in time. The flip side of that coin is that I can't call you while you're at home.
Mm,
We cannot intrude upon that off duty time when you're meant to be off duty, right? Now that changes as you move up through the ranks, right? Sergeants are going to get called more than an officer. My lieutenants are going to get called more than they will. My detective's going to get called. And obviously I'm going to get the messages all day, every day, right? But that's what I've asked for,
mhm,
correct? We have to, as much as we say go home, we have to respect go home,
mm,
right? The best that we can. But if we want to get longer retention, more bought in officers, that intrinsic motivation, then we have to look at, are you going home? Are you taking care of you? Are you doing things here that make you happy? Like, are we keeping that needle in the fun zone? Or have we moved to the exhausted burnout zone? And if we're in the exhausted burnout zone, don't take this as a negative, but we're going to back off the gas pedal a little bit,
mhm.
right? Because I care more about who you are 5 years from now than I do about how amazing you are being here 24 hours a day right now.
Right. I think that was such a powerful statement. Go home to survive the career. I wrote that down and thank you for sharing that. And, I've made a lot of the same mistakes that you have, and obviously we had different realities and they're not exactly the same, but with what you described, I did all of that early in my career too. Like I was defined by what I did. I thought that it was all or nothing. I didn't think that I could have prioritize my home life and also have been successful in my career. I thought that I had to put, everything into my career in order to be successful. And I sacrificed a lot and I missed a lot and I missed things that I can't get back. There's things I regret. And my question for you, because I've struggled with this question before, is, where do you find that line between work ethic and wellness, being able to disconnect, how do you balance that out if you even can, if balance even exists, because I hear a lot of people who, and I used to say this too, like, I take so much pride in my work ethic. It's my work ethic. I work really hard. I'm here, boots on the ground 24/7. I'm doing all the work that other people aren't willing to do. Where do you find that line for yourself between work ethic and, going home?
It's it's tough for me, I think, because I've always been a almost like a motivated overachiever type thing. And it came from, um, it comes from my past of trying to get the good job, trying to get the from people that mattered to me. So I've always been, what's the next thing? Like how I've gotten this, how do I get that? Um, Balancing it, you almost have to make the mistakes to find out what the balance is,
Mm,
right? It's hard. And I try to have this conversation with young officers if I can, but I've never found a good way to say, and I don't want to make up an answer. I've never found a good way to say like what that is. Is that because you can't quantify it, right? You can't say going out and doing five extra things on your own at home to improve your abilities at work is the limit because you don't know if that's the limit or not. And it's objective as well, right? What
right.
I might think is you putting in great effort and work, you might think is overwork or stressing out or something like that.
Yeah.
So the balance is very, I think it's individual. I think it's tough. I think it's something that you have to test the waters and boundaries of. And I don't want to say learn by mistake, but I know this. Everyone figures out where theirs is. And sometimes you figure it out sooner than others. I know what mine is. And I know now when I start to have a daughter that sees me an hour a day for, the week, right? Or a wife that I see in passing, or when my patience level is just so low that I'm not balancing correctly. I'm not navigating this the way that I should. The plate is too full. But I can't tell you that I have a metric there that says you've reached it.
Mm,
Right? I just have the feelings of knowing when I've been too far before and when I need to tell somebody no.
yeah.
Today's not going to be that day where you get 1000%. Today's going to be the day when you get the standard that I've set, but not the above. And I hate to say that like that, but it's just kind of it's one of those things where you feel it out. You know when you're given too much.
I think that was the perfect answer. And
That's good because I struggled through it.
no, I thought that was perfect because it is nuanced. And you said this earlier, no two people are the same.
Right.
For you to like stamp it and be like, this is unrealistic. And I do think it's important for all of us to learn from our mistakes. Try not to continue making the same mistakes over again. But also to have self-assessment. You have those like metrics for yourself, where you're like, hey, if my relationship with my spouse is in passing, then I'm doing too much at work. I need to be home more. I need to prioritize those things. So having kind of those little check boxes. I don't like to say check boxes because that sounds like you're just like tossing it in, but being able to gauge for yourself and to self-assess, I think is really important. And not a lot of people have the skills to self-assess. A lot of times we're all kind of ignorant to our own behavior sometimes. For you to be like, hey, I'm at zero right now with my patience level and I know my cup is running on empty here. I think that's great to have that self-assessment because then we can start moving forward and we can have those solution-based conversations. Once we know we have a problem, then we can move forward. But if you never know that you have a problem and you're just like, "Oh yeah, like I'm good with, passing my wife by and not seeing my kid. And like, my patience level is always at zero. So this is normal. And like, it's just how I operate. And that's not a problem. Then how are we ever going to find the solution? So I thought that that was a great answer. And thank you. I feel like we could talk for hours, but we're running out on time. And you already gave some really great advice. But for my final question, for the younger men and women who are entering into the career today, what words of wisdom would you share with them?
I'm going to shock you. Go home. I mean, so here's the reality is that I want you to have an amazing career. I want you to experience all the things in law enforcement. I was so fortunate to go through so many specialties, motorcycles, SWAT, scuba, accident reconstructionist, all these things. But the sustainability formula for this is to survive the career, go home. Like do those great, amazing, wonderful things and be able to do them for 20 years. Find that happiness outside of work that allows you to come to work and be motivated and invested in it while you're there. If you spend all your time at work, you might start thinking about things outside of work. That is a situational hazard, right? When you're there, be there and enjoy it. But be willing to be gone as well.
Mm.
The second thing I'll add, spend some intentional time thinking about you and what you want that path to look like and how you want you to look and feel both physically and mentally in 5 and 10 years. Because this job can stagnate you. This job can put you in an unhealthy position. Life in general will do that to you. So I don't want to just say it's this job, but life will catch you faster than you can catch up from it. And then the path to getting back to healthy and happy is a lot longer. So intentional planning about your career and life, and go home. Enjoy time away from work. And I know it's tough to do. I was 21 years old, 22, 23, 25, 27, giving it everything I had. And at that time, everyone that had 20 and 25 years on was telling me to slow down. And now here I am, 20 years later, and I'm looking at you and I'm saying the best advice I could give you is the best advice that was given to me. And that is enjoy this. This is such a rewarding, amazing career. It is, I wouldn't do anything differently. I would, given the opportunity to start over and become a police officer again, for sure. Enjoy it. It's rewarding. It's awesome. But also remember that you're not officer so and so. You're
Mm.
who you are as an individual. That is also a police officer.
So you're saying the old people knew what they were talking about.
100%. 100%. They
Thank
absolutely do.
you. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate you talking about mentorship and leadership and wellness and telling people to go home. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.